friends, Queen of Flannel here. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to our final part of our Yeti friend here. So first off, I apologize that it took me so long to get this video out. It's actually been done for a little while. I had all of the footage just sitting in Filmora, just waiting to be, cut and all that fun stuff, and life just kind of got away from me. And then I got sucked into the world of Procreate, and yeah, so I've been playing with that. It'd be nice at some point to be able to do my own line work to color on the channel. But anyways, he is done, and I'm here to share him with you, and then hopefully later on this week we can get to another Crayola crazy project. I have some ideas for it, so right now I am just going in and working on the trees with a very light touch. So I knew that I wanted the trees at the lower part of the page to be darker, but I also wanted everything to have the same tone to it. So what I ended up doing was going through and just laying down a base coat of this, what color is this? I still have them on my desk. So this is, I believe, olive. And yeah, I laid that down as a base, and then the trees on the lower corner, I used a couple of the browns, I believe, to just darken the whole tree. And then the trees up at the top where the light would be hitting them, I used the browns on the side closest to the Yeti to put those trees more in shadow. And then on the opposite side, I flipped it, and but I only did half of the trees on camera. So I finished these, and then my camera battery died, and so while I was waiting for it to charge, I ended up doing the other side of the trees off camera. And then I also did one of the mountains, just so I kind of had an idea of what I wanted my color scheme to be for those. So when we get to that part later on in the video, you'll see it'll cut and then come back, and the other half of the trees are done. And yeah, I mean, trying to think, I mean, it's colored pencil work. So I mentioned it a few times before in the other parts when working with the pencils, like when we were working on the Yeti, that these pencils really did surprise me. I mean, I had Crayolas growing up, and using them in this way was a lot different, obviously, than the way I used them as a kid. But if you treat them like you would a layering pencil, like a harder pencil like a polychromos, and you work in light layers to build them up, you can really get a lot of pigment out of these. Now, I probably didn't push them as far as I could in terms of layers. I ended up keeping the overall tone of the image relatively soft, just because the crayon background is very soft. And I talked about it when we did the background. I mean, there was only so many layers that I could do with the crayons, and we experimented, with blending solution. I used OMS and also the blender pencil on those. And so I wanted the Yeti and the foreground to have some pop to it, but not so much where it just looked like the foreground and the background were completely disjointed, but you really can get a decent amount of layers with these pencils as long as you're mindful of what you're working with. I mean, that's true of any, you know, any pencil, be it wax or polychromos, some more than others. If you're not careful and you go in too hard with your earlier layers, you're just going to damage the tooth of the paper, and it's going to make it more difficult to get that pigment payout that you're looking for. So that's one thing to keep in mind with these. But I think it just goes to show that you don't need big, giant, expensive sets of pencils to get nice looking images in the end. It's about what you do with them, and learning, you know, your pencils and your supply, and finding how it best, you know, fits your style. And, you know, I will say, if you have issues with your hands, I don't want to say that I wouldn't use these pencils, but you're definitely, your hands are gonna hurt after a while. So I would definitely be mindful of that. But again, some of that goes down to, you know, your technique. If you are heavy-handed, these probably aren't going to be the best pencil for you. But if you are patient and you work in light layers and build it up, it's, you know, it's really not that bad. And I'm not sure what the deal with my camera was, but I was fighting with the focus on this through a good chunk of the video. So I tried to pull my hand back so that it would refocus on the image, and I actually cut a fair bit of it out. I don't know if it was because the lighting in my office that day, if I had my window open, so there was some extra light coming in from outside, and because of the finish on these pencils, sometimes since they're shiny, the light reflects off of them, and the camera would just lock onto the pencil. So yeah, I tried to pull my hand back and cut as much of it as I could, but yeah, that was definitely a bit of a fight with this. So now I'm just going in and I'm doing the trunks of the trees and just some shading on these little guys. And I ended up going in as I was doing the mountains later and doing more shading and shadowing on some of these trees. It's kind of one of those things, like, I'll do part of this and then I'll move on to another part, and then as I'm working on that next part, I see something, you know, color-wise that I feel like needs to be tweaked as I go along. So like you'll see towards the end of the video, I ended up going in and doing some additional work on the Yeti. Nothing major, but I tend to bounce around a lot, so I will often leave a piece, I won't say unfinished, but I will get it to a point where I'm generally like satisfied with it, but it's not completely finished, because sometimes as I'm working through the rest of the image, like I said, I feel like I need to go back and tweak things on other parts. You know, if my vision for the tonality of the image changes, you know. And that's one of the reasons why on images like this, I like doing the background first, because sometimes that influences my my colors and my values for the rest of the image. It just depends on what it is I'm working on. I did not realize how long it took me to do just this half of the trees. But we're almost done with this section, and then we'll come back and we'll do some mountains. Yeah, I think it took me almost like 45-ish minutes just to do this half, but it ended up being cut down to like 20 minutes of footage, and we're only at 10 minutes in. And so I did go in and darken up the areas of the Yeti down by the trees. And I kind of wrestled with what color I wanted to do the rock face in the front. I debated it doing it more like earth colors, earth tone colors, like browns and whatnot. But ultimately I ended up just keeping them to like the blue grays and the grays and whatnot. The same color scheme I used for the mountain, I used for the rock face. Because there's a lot of like oranges and browns in the upper part of the image, and I felt like if I brought that down to the bottom, it'd be a little much. And then I found a way to kind of tie it together, but I'll talk about that when we actually get to that section of the video. So I hope that everybody is doing well, and I just wanted to say thank you for all of your support on my videos since I've come back. I appreciate it. I have some ideas for some things for next month that you guys have given me, and hopefully I just hopefully I'm able to get to them. So I know I talked about, I'll delve into a little bit of the personal side of things here while we're finishing up these trees, but I know I talked about how I had my I had an appointment with a neurologist in ophthalmology, and I had my CT scan the other day, quick and painless. I'm supposed to start steroid infusions at some point in the near future for 12 weeks. I'm not sure when. She said if I didn't hear anything back from the infusion center in like 3 weeks to give her a call, but yeah, so that's supposed to start, and obviously I have no idea how how my body is going to react to that. I know I've heard some other people say that it can be a little bit rough, and I'm aware of like the side effects and things like that. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. And since it's 12 weeks, it kind of puts the hold on my job search. So that was disappointing, but it is what it is at this point. And then I'll have a follow-up once. I think I'll have another follow-up with the ophthalmologist about halfway through. I'm sure at some point I'll need another CT scan. And then once I'm done with this round of infusions, I have to go back and they determine what my next option is. And I'm hoping I don't need surgery on my face. Yeah. So, back to what's going on in the video. So I'm just doing some shading on the lower part of these trees. And they kind of look like they're growing out of his leg, especially that top one. And so I wasn't sure if that was intentional on Kerby's part. So I kind of just yeah, I'm not sure if he's supposed to be like part of the mountain, or just like he's coming over the mountain. So I treated them like independent of the Yeti's leg. And then at first I wasn't sure if this part was part of the rock face, and I ended up just coloring it as a like foliage, as a bush. So we should be almost done with the trees. I really like how they turned out in the end, how this whole like bottom half of the image. And I could probably go in and just do more work to it, which I actually did off camera, just real minor little things. So it'll go up on Instagram shortly after this, after the video drops. Okay, so I started off this section of the video just doing these little, the little tidbits. So I did the skull and the torch on the right first before I started doing the mountains. I had a little bit of trouble with the shadowing on the skull, because I knew that I wanted part of it to look like it was in shadow, and it turned out, but not quite like I had originally envisioned. But it's a relatively minor piece of the image, so I wasn't too fussed about it in the end. So yeah, you can see now that the rest of the trees are pretty much done, other than, you know, a little shading as I go in and start working on the mountains. So just to recap, the background on this was done with Crayola crayons, just straight up, just kids' crayons. And the pencils are the 100 count set, which I will link in the description below. There is a 120 count set of these pencils now, but when I was picking up supplies for my my hashtag this month, Target only had the 100 count set, so I just grabbed that, and 100 pencils is more than enough. I debated as well whether or not I wanted to do the flame on this blue, kind of like the little like snow chunks coming off the Yeti, and ultimately I changed my mind and decided to just go with normal fire colors. yeah, I kind of bounced around on this one between my oranges, and it's hard to see on camera, but I left the edges yellow, and then I tried to bring a little bit of the lighting outside of the lines a little bit, but since I'd already pretty much burnished the crayons, it was a little tough. But I still like the way it came out. And then I actually came in with the red and just darkened up some areas, especially inside the like behind the little like cap. And so now we are starting on our mountain range, and I'm going in with, this is slate. And I started in the shadowed areas that Kerby left for us, and some of the textured areas as well with this color first. And I'm not covering the paper with pencil. I decided on this rock face and the mountains that I was going to leave a lot of like white areas and just use the paper as my my highlight. I find myself, I've been doing that quite a bit, even with the pencils. So I think it's a carryover from working with the alcohol markers. I mean, you could color the entire thing, and then you could use a gel pen or a paint marker if you wanted darker highlights, if you wanted, you know, to put some highlights back. But that wasn't really the look that I was going for. Now, I do that on some of my images, but it kind of depends on what the image is, because I feel like it does give it a very like illustrative type style with the gel pens and the you know, the paint markers, and it wasn't really what I wanted for this image, so it worked out better to just use the white of the paper. And I did end up leaving, since we're talking about acrylic paint markers, I did end up leaving the snow pieces at the top that I had painted. I left them. I just didn't feel like going back in and messing with them. I had a few suggestions that said that I could use one of the blender pencils to get the acrylic paint off, but I left it. And I don't hate the way it looks. It was a choice. But I did end up, for the rest of those snow pieces, towards the bottom, I just used the sky blue colored pencil, the same pencil that I used on the Yeti's beard and around his legs. I just went in and used that to color those in, and then we left it at that. You know, sometimes we make choices, and it is what it is. So this was a lot of back and forth between pencils. I think this is my back with the slate. This is either slate or ash, I believe. Since I'm down near the bottom. Yeah, this is so I'm coming in with the ash colored pencil down near the lines to add some shading and shadows where the rock faces kind of like overlap and where the trees would actually be casting a shadow on the rocks. So I wanted it darker at the bottom and lighter at the top, obviously, since the mountains and the certain areas of the bigger piece of the rock are closer to the horizon line, so they'd be getting more light. And then I was kind of using this is Timberwolf, I believe. Very, 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 very light gray, like a warm gray pencil, and I ended up using this kind of as a blender. It kept the tone of the object, but yeah, because the white colored pencil in this set is not the greatest, and because I wanted to stick to primarily just the Crayolas, I didn't want to bring in like a Prismacolor or anything like that, so. I don't know if I left it in or if it got cut, but I kept tripping off the edge of the paper down at the bottom. It was kind of funny to watch after the fact, but I kept just like catching the edge of the paper. So this is just darkening up behind the skull, because obviously he'd be leaving some cast shadows, and then adding in some cast shadows from the trees against the rock. And again, my camera went crazy. Yeah, I even have a filter. So my light that I use on my desk is it's a fluorescent light bar, and it's pretty bright. So I ended up getting a sheet of Roscolux diffuser paper. We used to use it on the lights in the theater when I worked as a student aide in college. But again, those lights were many feet up in the air, and this light is right in my face on top of my desk. So even that sometimes doesn't quite do the job, and it doesn't help that sometimes the cat will come in here and get up on my desk, and she'll rip the filter paper off of the light. And I ended up turning the book here, so I apologize. It does get turned back. But yeah, this must have been after I kept going off of the edge of the paper, so it was easier to just turn it and color up and down this direction. So back in with the Timberwolf. So I zoomed out so you guys could kind of get a better look of where we're at so far. And this was actually, I went in with the black around the edges around the trees and in these little like cracks and crevices. And I like how it pops with the black on there. And yeah, I definitely felt like I needed some more shadow on that rock from his hand. And so I'm using the Timberwolf here to kind of blend the edges of the that black out, and we're at about to the point where I started going in with the blender pencil. Not quite, but almost. Okay, now we're back with the blender pencil. And so if you're wondering why there's tape on the end of it, this is the Derwent blender pencil, not the burnisher. It came in a 2-pack with the blender and a burnisher, and it has a very like shiny end to it. And so I took a piece of painter's tape and put it over that shiny edge. Now I probably should have used a different color tape because, again, the white, the camera just locked onto that white surface, and I still struggled. But the tape has a matte finish, so it wasn't quite as bad. But yeah, so I'm using the Derwent blender, and this is it's designed for wax-based pencils, but it is a very hard like not lead, but whatever they use to make it with. It's much harder than the Prismacolor blender, and I found that it really plays nicely with these Crayola pencils. Now, I don't use this blender a lot because it is kind of scratchy, but yeah, it definitely has a good relationship with the Crayola pencils. So I ended up, as I just drop it on the floor, I ended up picking up a couple more of these. I would like to do more work with these Crayola pencils in the future. Like, honestly, I was a little worried about how long it would take me to finish this page using just pencils. Normally on something like this, I probably would use marker as a base. I think some of it came down to the fact that I used crayons for the background, and then I didn't color the entire like front mountain face with the pencil, so it probably took me less time. But yeah, it definitely, this blender pencil really helped to smooth some of those edges out, and I was able to use it to actually push some of the pencil around, like into the white areas. And if you are light-handed with the blender, you can still go in over the top of the blended areas with these pencils and add a little bit more back in. Like, I know with some of the, like, the wax-based blenders, it's like once you put that layer down and you blend your pencil out, you've burnished it into the paper. But as long as I kept my touch light with these, I was still able to go back in and add more pencil, like, over the top. Okay, so now I am, this is the sky blue, and I used the same sky blue crayon in the background, but it's blended in with other colors so you can't really tell. And it's also the same pencil that I used in the Yeti's beard. So I'm going in on these little, like, snow pieces, and I put a little bit of it in the rock face and the mountain tops, just to kind of tie everything together. In just a few, like, spots around some of the edges. And there were a lot of these little pieces. Like, I went back a few times and realized that I missed a couple, so. I think that one over the torch I missed on camera, but I did fill it in after the fact. I know there were a couple I missed when I was doing this. So now I am coming in with, I believe this is Cocoa. And I felt like our Yeti needed just a little, like, some finishing touches. So I brought the brown, the Cocoa pencil in to some areas around the edges, like where those little, like, creases between, like, his wrist and his hand, and around the knuckles, and between, like, his fingers, and yeah, around his pecs. I just felt like it needed a little bit more definition. I can't remember if I did this on his face as well. I meant, like, up around the hairline. I know I touched up some things off camera too, but I'm... Yep, and then just darkening up where the trees would be covering him up. Oh, and we are coming to the end. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for all of your support, for watching this video. It is complete and it'll go up on Instagram. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, please like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified when I post future videos. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much.